All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back for another ASP.NET Community Stand-Up. It's great to have you all here. This is where we discuss the latest updates and developments for web development with .NET. I'm Daniel Roth, product manager for ASP.NET Core on the .NET team. And I've got a couple of my good friends here today with us on the live stream, Mike and Mackinnon. Mike and Mackinnon, do you guys want to say hello and introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Mike Kistler. I'm also a product manager on the ASP.NET Core team.
And I'm Mackinnon. I'm a developer on the ASP.NET Core team.
Fantastic. Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming back on the show. We've had you a few times. And some of you may remember Mackinnon back from the Blazor community stand-up days where he would run that show. He's now working in some other interesting things like security, apparently. Passkeys, I believe, is the topic for today. We'll be talking about passwordless authentication using passkeys in .NET 10. Now, it's been a couple weeks since we've had our last community stand-up, and that's because last week was the Build Conference, Microsoft Build 2025, which was just loaded this year with amazing announcements and new features and capabilities for developers. So you can build the most awesome applications and software that you can imagine using these AI services, cloud services, all sorts of stuff that got announced. If you haven't already checked out the keynote, you're going to want to do that. Make sure you check it out. Amazing things that Satya shared with us that are happening with AI and with the cloud. So make sure you watch the keynote to see all those things. And then, of course, there's all of the sessions that happened during the week, which are now available for you to watch on demand. So if you missed any of them, you can just scroll down here on the Build homepage, view the on-demand sessions, and then look through here for anything you want to catch up on. There were a ton of .NET sessions this year. Like if I just filter for C#, I think there were it's like almost 80 C# related sessions. So tons of stuff for the .NET community and audience. Mike and I were there. You may recognize these faces. We presented about the future of web development with ASP.NET Core and Blazor. So we talked all about our .NET 10 roadmap and the things that we're planning to deliver in the next major release of the .NET platform. So go ahead and check that out. You can see all of our latest updates on that session. And then there were a bunch of other really great announcements. I don't know, Mike Mackinnon, what were your favorite things from Build this year? What did you like?
Well, for me, I split my time between ASP.NET and MCP, and there was just so much about MCP this year. It was in the keynotes, it was in the booth, it was in a whole bunch of sessions. People were coming to the booth asking about MCP. What should they be doing with MCP? It was great.
People have built MCP servers now that you have access to. I think there was a Playwright MCP server, Azure MCP servers. There's a whole bunch of them that Microsoft actually is now shipping. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before in our previous stand-ups, but for people who haven't quite got their heads around, like, what is this MCP thing? Do you want to give us like the quick overview, Mike? What's MCP about? What's cool about it?
Sure. The quick overview is MCP is a way of providing tools or data or resources to an LLM so that it can augment the knowledge that it was trained on with knowledge that you can provide it from elsewhere, or tools that let it actually perform actions for you, book an airplane flight or something like that. So that's it in a nutshell.
And it's like a standardized way of doing that, right? So if you have, like, someone else wrote the software, if someone built the thing that works with AI, you can use MCP to sort of add plugins, like add extensions to that software using a standardized format to add those tools and data to that system. Like if you wanted to do some custom plugin to GitHub Copilot in Visual Studio Code, to have it have access to some data, maybe docs for your library that you wrote, or whatever information that would be useful for GitHub Copilot to have, you could write an MCP server and then configure it, and then Visual Studio Code, GitHub Copilot can just pick that up and start using it.
I think Satya described it as it's like HTTP, but for LLMs, right? Yeah. It's just sort of the standard protocol that people are going to use to have communications amongst these things.
For those of you who don't know, Mike actually works quite a bit on MCP himself. So this may be a reason why he found this particularly interesting. Mike, you work on the C# MCP SDK, right?
That's right. That's right. I'm the PM for that as well. Yep.
This is how you, if you, as a C# developer, if you want to build your own MCP server that plugs into one of these AI systems, you can use this SDK to do that. Or if you want to build your own like extensible AI application, like your own MCP client or host, I believe the SDK has that functionality as well. There's a great blog post on the C# MCP SDK that you can check out on the .NET blog. Okay, that's great. So MCP was pretty hot this year at Build. Mackinnon, what did you like?
So there are a few things that I liked. It was definitely an AI-focused build, but there were some actually non-AI related talks that I really liked. One was, there was a highly technical talk by Stephen Tobe and Scott Hanselman. That was really cool. They implemented like a kind of a simpler version of system threading channels. And so that was, yeah, it's this one, yet another highly technical talk. I really like that series that they do. It was cool to see that being continued and Build. Another thing, and I actually saw this in the comments right now, was being able to directly run C# files, .NET Run something.cs.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. I'm excited to abandon PowerShell and just use that from now on. So
I find that one. That was a great. That was short. Right? It was just like a 15-minute demo. I think that
was Damien, right?
One. No projects, just C# where you just
Yep.
.NET Run a C# file without having to have a project file.
Yeah. So I'd say those are my top two.
That's being worked on for .NET 10. So like in other communities, Go, I think JavaScript, obviously you can just like node run a JavaScript file or run a Python file. So with C# you always have to have a little bit more machinery in place. Like you've got a project file at least. I mean, we've been whittling away at this for a while, right? Like it used to be when I was a younger man, when you wanted to write a C# program, program, class, static void main method in order to get your entry point into your application. And then we introduced like C# top level statements, so you could just have like hello world, console write line hello world in a C# file, and that was enough for your application code. But you still had to have like a project file kicking around someplace to know that, hey, this is something I actually want to build. With this work that's happening in .NET 10, all you need is a C# file. That's it, and you can start building an app, and you can get some code running. So that was pretty cool. Definitely check that out and let us know what you think about that model. This is our effort to keep lowering the bar, like making it easier to on-ramp into .NET and C#. Cool. So that was all great stuff. Some other highlights that, in case you missed it, things that were really cool. The new GitHub Copilot coding agent got announced at Build. I mean, we've been talking about Padawan for a little while in the prior to Build, but now it's available for you to try out in preview. So this is an autonomous agent that you can assign to your GitHub issues, and it will start working on the code for you, right? Like building out a PR under the supervision of a developer, of course. Like it's not doing it completely independently. Like I think you kind of like co-assign both. Is that right, Mackinnon? Like you get assigned with the coding agent. Have you had this happen to you already? I know we've already been working on using the coding agent in our repositories.
I haven't directly had experience with it yet, but I think I've seen what you're talking about, where it gets assigned on behalf of you, and so you still own the work that it does.
So it's still Mackinnon's PR effectively, but the coding agent is sort of helping you produce that work. And then, on our team, you always need another person to come in and review the code. So you still then have another human that comes in and review that PR to make sure everything's in good shape. And yeah, it's pretty magical. I know we've already had some code that's gone into our repos based off of the coding agent after going through the normal reviews. We're also doing a bunch of the work that you can do in your repo to set things up so it's more successful, like giving it there's like a markdown file. You can give it some instructions up front so it knows better how to use your repo. I think there's mechanisms where you can even plug in MCP servers into its environment that it has access to, so it can be smarter about how to work in your repo, how to run the tests, all these types of things. So there's some learnings to set up your repo in order to get it to be fully successful. We're already working through that and pretty excited about the increased productivity. So that was pretty cool. Also for DevOps, there's now agentic DevOps that we're working on. There was a bunch of things here in Amanda's blog post that she highlighted that you should check out. So in addition to helping out with the developer side, the the DevOps set of tasks, having agents that can help you with your builds and managing those types of things is also something that we've been working on. So that's pretty cool. One thing that I also noticed that she mentioned in here was the new capabilities for modernizing apps. There's the new GitHub Copilot Upgrade Assistant, I think is what it's called, that can help with upgrading .NET apps from doing version-to-version upgrades, like from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, that's that type of thing. This is based off of AI to help you manage all the package dependencies and get the code fixed up. I'm pretty excited what this is going to mean for people upgrading from 9 to 10, where it just becomes a much more seamless and automatic experience. You just point to GitHub Copilot Upgrade Assistant at your .NET 9 apps, and it will help you turn it into a .NET 10 app. It's pretty neat. I think the Aspire folks had a release announcement. 9.3 went out, so a bunch of new features there. If you haven't tried out .NET Aspire, strongly encourage you to do so. You can add it to any of your ASP.NET Core apps and start getting the great features and benefits that Aspire brings to your developer experience. So 9.3 is now out and available for use. So a bunch of stuff. Build was, I think, amazing this year. I'm sure I will be spending many of my nights and weekends binge watching build sessions to catch up on all the cool stuff that was announced. There was a bunch of open source announcements. Like, did you hear that they open sourced GitHub Copilot for Visual Studio Code? Like, that is now available and as open source. And Windows Subsystem for Linux was the other one. WSL. Yeah, also made open source. So some great announcements for the open source ecosystem. Okay, so build was cool, super fun. Make sure you check it out. But today, what we're here to talk about is Passkeys. Mike, what are Passkeys? You wanna?
What are Passkeys? Yeah. So let's get on with it. So for those of you that don't know, Passkeys are a standard. They're standardized by the W3C, and these are cryptographic credentials that can replace traditional passwords. It's a public-private key pair. Okay, so it's the same asymmetric cryptography that powers lots of things like SSL, right? And the public key is shared with the website or application that the user's authenticating to, and the private key is stored in an authenticator. And this is a special thing for Passkeys. That authenticator is either a security key, like a YubiKey, or it's the secret enclave of a desktop or a laptop, or it can be an authenticator app like Microsoft Authenticator. And the fact that that authenticator sort of holds that private key and doesn't let it out is a really important feature of Passkeys. The authenticator, though, will take that private key and will sign a challenge that's sent from the application or website with that private key so that it can be sent back. And then the authentication happens by the website decrypting that challenge with the public key and making sure that the challenge is indeed what it sent. That's a way of saying, yes, the user is in possession of the private key, right? In addition, the authenticator will only sign a challenge if it gets acknowledgement from the user that it actually wants to do this. So there's user verification involved, and that's in the form of a Face ID or a fingerprint scan or entering a PIN or touching your security key. So that combination of the user verification and the fact that the authenticator holds that. Oh, and one more thing is that Passkeys are scoped to a specific user account and application. So you can't share Passkeys across applications like you could with passwords. So there's no sharing of these things like there could be with passwords. So the combination of these things make Passkeys phishing resistant, but still very easy to use. Okay, and that's a critical combination. That's what makes it so popular now for applications to want to use passkeys as their form of authentication. So what are we doing in .NET 10? Well, we're adding support for passkeys into ASP.NET Core Identity, the identity framework within ASP.NET. This is going to be built into the shared framework, but it's inspired by a popular open source package called FIDO2 NetLib. Now that package has a lot of features and functionality, and we're not taking all of that. We're just going to implement the basics that we need to support passkeys for ASP.NET Core Identity in ASP.NET Core. In particular, we're not adding support for attestation, which is something that package supports, because that aspect of the protocol is still in flux, it's still evolving, and we don't want to incorporate that into the shared framework because there's the potential that we would have to change it later, which would be potentially a breaking change. But we are going to layer this in such a way, and I think Mackinnon is even going to show some of this later, where you can layer some of that stuff on top and you can get all the functionality that you want. It just won't all be built in. In addition to the protocol layer, we're going to be extending the project templates so that when you create a new ASP.NET Core project, you can ask to have passkey support built in to the authentication layer in that project. Just like today, you can ask for individual accounts and we'll give you ASP.NET Identity. We can add passkeys into that as well. And if you already have an ASP.NET Core application that uses identity and you want to add passkey support to it, there will be ways to do that as well. We'll have tools and instructions on how to do that. Now, that's going to be a little complicated because it will require a database schema migration in order to add the places where we store the information about passkeys for each user in the identity database. But we'll have all the information about how to do that when we release .NET 10. So that's what we're planning. That's what we're actively working on. And Mackinnon is actually doing the work. So I'm going to turn it over to him now to show some demos about our progress on this.
Cool. Right,
Sounds great.
Thing up 1 second. There we go.
Okay. All right. So as Mike mentioned, we are going to add passkey support directly into both the framework, both ASP.NET Core Identity and also the project templates. So what I've done here is I've just created a Blazor web app with individual authentication, and I'm going to show the new passkey support that comes with. So I'll first start by just running the app and showing what this looks like.
While that's building, there's someone that was asking about whether it's possible to have multiple passkeys for the same account. And I assume that is totally possible. Like you can have multiple and that would be okay. In fact, I think many systems will have like a way to manage like adding and removing passkeys for your particular account. Yes, and that's actually something that I will show in this demo. So, okay, this has finally started running. I will, I think I've already created an account, so I'll go ahead and sign in with that account, and then I will register a passkey for it. So let's go ahead and log in. And if we go to the management page, the account management page, we can see there's a new section for passkeys. So if I click that, we can see that there's a button to add a new passkey and view our existing passkeys. In this case, I don't have any passkeys registered yet. So I'll just click add a new passkey, and I will enter my PIN. This is just the PIN that I log in with to my machine. So this is using the Windows Authenticator. So I'll just enter that right there. And we have a passkey saved. And now I get a chance to name this passkey. So I will name it work laptop because that's the machine that I'm using. That's the machine that the passkey is getting saved on. The whole reason for assigning a name, by the way, is just so that like if something were to happen to the device, or you just want to not allow that device to log in to the app, you can remove the passkey, and then that passkey will no longer work for the website. So to demonstrate login, let's log out, and then I'll do login with a passkey. Edge automatically knows which passkeys I have associated with this website, and so it's suggesting one for this one, test.test.com, which is my
account that I created. So I'll select that, and I will enter my PIN again, and I'm logged in. So that was really easy to sign in with Passkeys rather than having to remember, an individual password for each site or use a password manager or something like that. I will also show though that you can add multiple passkeys. So here we've already added one for the laptop. I will add another passkey, and you can see in this dialog that that the authenticator already knows that I already have a passkey set up for this website. So it's asking if I want to add what's called a non-resident key. So it's a passkey that's stored on a different device. So it could be like a YubiKey, or it could be iPhone, iPad, or Android device. In my case, I have an Android device right here. So I'm going to select that option and click next. And now I get this code right here. And I will click connect. And then it's going to ask for my fingerprint. And now I have Passkey with my phone. So now I can name this like Android phone.
I'm guessing in general, you probably don't want to share that QR code.
You definitely
on the internet.
But in this case, like this is not a real website. So yeah, you wouldn't want to do that.
So see if someone could race you to setting up a passkey on their phone for your account here in this little local place.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is just for demo purposes. But yeah, in general, yeah, you wouldn't necessarily want to do that. Yeah, cool. So then if I do log in again, then I'd be able to log in with my phone. One thing I want to show though is that like in this case, I don't have it set up, but if the browser had decided to like autofill our email like this, and then we click login with a passkey, we don't have to go through that first edge selector to pick the account that you want to log in with. It just happens to know that you're logging in with this account because it got autofilled. So that's kind of like a nice, like it skips a step. If the email is already filled out. If you don't fill out the email, that's what's called usernameless login. So here I'll just do it again. I'll sign in with my phone, click connect, and use my fingerprint, and boom, we're logged in. And then of course, you can remove passkeys. So if I remove my work laptop, for example, and then I try to log in with that one, then then it's not going to work because I have removed that passkey. So that's kind of an overview of changes to the template. We might also add a way to register an account with a passkey, so you won't even have a password associated with the account at all. That's not implemented yet, but it could be something that we get done for .NET 10 as well. And so yeah, that's part one of the demo. I do have another demo that we can move on to, unless there are questions.
We want to get to do some of these questions first. Let's see what. So first of all, this was kind of fun. That what is a YubiKey, which is
oh yeah.
I think someone else did actually help out with that. That it's actually it's a YubiKey. But does anyone want to? Can you guys explain briefly what a YubiKey is and how it relates to this flow?
You have one, right, Mackinnon? You can just show it.
I actually don't personally have one.
Oh, I think I have one.
Get one.
Let me see.
Oh, do you have one? Yeah, maybe you can show it.
But it's basically a physical piece of hardware that has that. Actually, I'm not. It doesn't have storage on it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know how well that comes into focus, but yeah, it's just a little key that you can stick into your USB on your device, and then it talks to your device and will provide this functionality of the authenticator that we talked about earlier.
Does it actually have storage on it? Like, does it store private keys on the device itself? Okay.
Yeah. The keys can be stored on the device. Now, there's this whole thing about, do you store the key on the device, or do you store the key? Is it a non-resident key, if you will? There's this distinction between resident keys and non-resident keys. Resident keys are actually stored on the device. Non-resident keys have this special way that they can be materialized from the information in the exchange between the client and the server.
Yeah. Okay. There's someone that was asking about when you have multiple passkeys for the same account. Is there like any sort of limit? Like, is it just application specific what that limit is, or is it the authenticator device?
You can set a limit if you want, but there's no limit by default. So we will store as many passkeys, or Identity will store as many passkeys as you give it. So there's no hard limit.
There were a bunch of questions about cross-platform support, like does this work on a Linux machine? Someone was asking about. There was someone else later that asked about like using this on a Mac. Is there anything Windows specific about what you're showing here?
Nothing Windows specific, although in this demo I was using the Windows Authenticator, but if I was on another machine, I'd be using a different authenticator. And the WebAuthn implementation that we have for identity is not it's not specifically tied to any kind of authenticator. So yes, it is totally cross-platform.
Like in the things that are happening in the browser, like I believe you're calling into browser web APIs, right? Into the platform APIs in the browser in order to the browser then engages with the underlying system to figure out what authenticators are available and those types of things. So on a Mac or Linux device, the browser platform APIs would be implemented appropriately by the browser to interact with Mac or Linux or whatever in a Mac-y way, I guess.
Yeah,
or Linux-y way. Okay. There was a question about having passwordless accounts. I think, Mike, we were talking about this earlier as well, right? Like, in this case, in this demo, Mackinnon did actually have a password associated with the user account, but I guess, could you have an account that doesn't even have a password at all and only has passkeys?
Yeah, you can. And our implementation, our APIs do support setting that up, so you can create an account without a password. The UI just isn't set up to do that yet in the template, but that's something that we may be able to finish by .NET 10 GA. That would be a cool stretch goal.
Cool. All right. Will this work with other identity providers such as Keycloak integrated with Aspire? I'm trying to think what would be specific there about this. Like, so Keycloak is itself an identity service, and so I guess it would be Keycloak that would need to support having Passkey support, which presumably it does. I don't know that there would be any limitation there. It would just be a way for you to log in using Keycloak, using Passkeys. I think you basically go read the Keycloak docs on what their Passkey story is, and if it supports it, then this would work. But it's kind of independent of what you're showing here. Like this is based off of aspnetcore identity, where you're basically hosting your own identity provider yourself. Like you're storing the user identities in your own database. With something like Keycloak, you're basically saying, I want to use this other appliance or service or piece of software to manage my identities. No, anything to add on that?
Yeah, it might be that. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't know exactly what Keycloak supports, but it might be that they're able to store passkey information, like store the credential, but they don't help with the assertion or attestation processes. For those, you could probably use a library like FIDO2netlib or another like open source .NET Passkey library. Ours is tied to identity though, so it's not meant to be a general purpose WebAuthn or FIDO2 library. It's integrated directly with identity. So yeah.
Makes sense. All right. Let's see. We talked about Linux support and Mac support. How does the authenticator know this? Is there like a browser API you call from the front end to initiate the Windows security authenticator stuff? And I think we spoke to that one. Like, yeah, this is all just going through the browser platform APIs.
Yeah, the specific API is I think it's navigator.credentials.create and navigator.credentials.get. Those are the two JavaScript APIs that cause the authenticator to try to generate a credential.
Perfect. Okay, and then how does this work with other password managers? I think the answer here is that many password managers can act as an authenticator, as a store for the private keys.
Yep.
So check with your favorite password manager to see if it supports doing that. In that case, you might be able to use it as the place where your private keys are stored for your websites that are using passkeys. All right. I think that is there. Maybe more.
So
why don't we go
there's
to
a
the next
question
part?
that I don't know how to answer. Maybe you can. Soon asked, is this part of identity UI or has that been deprecated? So not quite sure what that means.
Yeah, so what I'm showing right here is a Blazor app. And so for Blazor, what we do is the identity UI is part of the template. We also do have an identity UI package that's based on Razor pages. That will also be updated. It has not yet, though, which is why I'm showing the Blazor app. but that provides the UI as a library rather than as like scaffolded.
I suspect like there's two implementations of the user interface to aspnetcore identity that we provide out of the box. And one is obviously the Blazor one, the Blazor identity UI implementation, which is built using Blazor components. And then we have an older one, which is just the identity UI, which is based off of Razor pages, so CSHTML files and such. And obviously we have users that are on both. Are we planning to also support passkeys in the older Razor pages based identity UI, or only in the newer Blazor implementation?
I believe the plan would be to support both.
Okay. So we would have to do that both. Cool.
Yep.
All right. So this was the question you were talking about, Mike, right? And has the identity UI been deprecated? It has not been deprecated. Like we do understand that we have a lot of users using MVC, using Razor pages, using aspnetcore identity with those systems, and so we continue to maintain those UI frameworks as part of the broader ASP.NET Core offering. Blazor is where we are putting a lot of our investment and attention and innovation, just because it's the most flexible UI framework that we provide. And so if you were starting with a new application, we would generally recommend Blazor and using Blazor. But if you're on MVC or Razor pages, you can feel good knowing that still fully supported, still being maintained, and even getting new features.
I see a question about support for ED25519 cryptographic keys, and the answer to that is we do not support that right now because the algorithm is not implemented in the .NET BCL. So we don't have the liberty of relying on like a third-party implementation for that, just for security reasons. But if that someday does get implemented directly into .NET, then we could easily leverage it, and then it would be automatically supported in Passkeys,
Cool.
in an ASP.NET identity Passkeys, that is.
So that's something that's important for people. Presumably, you should go check out the .NET runtime repo on GitHub and look for the existing. There's probably already an issue about that particular cryptographic setup. But if there's not one, then open one, and that lets the core framework library folks know that that's something that you would like to see added to the platform. All right, we should see the part 2. What's
okay, great. Yeah. So one of the comments actually mentioned the FIDO conformance testing suite, and if not familiar with what that is, it's a test tool that you can use to check if your FIDO2 or WebAuthn server is conformant with the spec. And so you can like specify a host and then run the tests, and then it will do all these checks to see if your implementation is conformant. And so one thing that we decided not to implement in the ASP.NET Core identity implementation of Passkeys is attestation certificate validation. So like every authenticator, when you generate a new credential, it provides an attestation statement or attestation certificate. And this can be used to verify the authenticity of the authenticator. This is mostly important if you are like, let's say you're like building an internal app or something like for your company and you don't want company secrets to get leaked. Maybe you care about which specific authenticators your employees use because you don't want them to use something insecure that could result in some sensitive information getting leaked or something, right? But it's kind of like a rapidly evolving space. The attestation part of the spec, and there's a lot of different formats that we would have to support if we wanted to implement this, which is why we've kind of decided not to do that, because it would be kind of it would be a possible source of continuous maintenance for us. However, we do have APIs that allow you to plug in additional like attestation certificate validation logic. So I will show how you can do that, and then I'll show the before and after with the test results from the FIDO2 conformance testing suite. So let's go to this project, conformance demo, and I'll just open this in Visual Studio. So I'll do, oh, it's conformance demo. There we go. It's opening on my other screen. Oh, nope, it's opening on the right one. Okay. So what I have here is just an ASP.NET Core Web API application, and it just sets up some endpoints to register credentials and verify them. And this is what the conformance testing tool will be calling into in order to verify the ASP.NET Core identity Passkey implementation. So I'll go ahead and run this. I'm doing HTTP because the dev certs on my machine are totally messed up, and I spent about an hour trying to fix them, and they're not fixed. So I'm running HTTP for now. But yeah. All right, so let's get this set up. I will reset the test results. And so what I'll show first is what the test results look like without attestation statement verification. So I think this is set up, and I think that URL's, yeah, it is, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and run. Run. Okay, so it's generating a bunch of results, and we see a couple failures, right? So yeah, and all of these failures, if you read the message, like, okay, we see that the server should have failed because the attestation statement was not a CBOR map, so we weren't conformant there, and then it sends some statements with like missing values, so like missing algorithm, and these are just some examples of failures that can happen if you don't do attestation certificate validation. So what we're going to do is we will go ahead and register a custom service that adds this in. So there's this interface called iPasskey attestation statement verifier, and you can provide a custom implementation, and that's what will get used to verify the attestation statement. So what I've done here is I've just created a really simple implementation that uses the very popular FIDO2 netlib, which is like a super full-featured FIDO2.NET library. And so I'm kind of just plugging in their attestation verification functionality here and returning true if it all succeeds. So now that that's set up, we can go ahead and run this again, and we will see how the results change. So let's go ahead and reset this. And we'll run again. So it's running again, and you can see that like now all these tests that were failing are now passing. And so it was really easy for me to plug in. Okay, so this failure is just because the RS1 algorithm is turned off by default in our implementation because it's not the most secure. Maybe we'll allow a way to turn it on, but it's off by default. But other than that, all these attestation statement tests are now passing again. So yeah, that's how you can extend functionality extend Passkey functionality to fill in the missing gaps where we don't provide a default implementation. And there's other extensibility points too. It's there are lots of different options you can configure. We have if we go to where is it here? So like for example, there's like a new Passkey options type that we've defined that's part of identity options, and you can define different settings for what origins you allow for the Passkey credentials to come from, and then we've got lots of other settings as well. So like if I just go to options Passkey, you can define what the ID of your server is, which is called server domain, whether you allow backed up credentials. So like for example, am I allowed to have a Passkey exist on multiple devices and be backed up? Yes or no? Just a lot of different options, and then also extensibility points like this interface to fill in the missing gaps. This isn't final yet. This hasn't been merged. It still has to undergo like API review and things like that. But this is what we have so far. So that's all I had for the demo. If there are more questions, I'd be happy to take those.
This is great stuff, Mackinnon.
Well, thanks. Awesome. Oh, Jen, I think you're muted.
I was saying amazing things, by the way. That it was. I was just saying that's cool stuff. And I was talking to how Christopher apparently feels like this is cool stuff as well, and has been doing some manual steps to handle this himself. So it's great to see that can be automated, not built in, but the extensibility points are available. There are a couple other questions that are just general questions. Let me show some question about Entra. Is there any specific configuration needed to use passkeys with Entra?
So I think that would be with Entra's libraries and sources, and I'm pretty sure they support passkeys, but that's separate from what we're doing here, right? Because what we're doing here is all about ASP.NET Core identity.
Yeah. So if you're using an Entra-based system, then you can go look at their docs about how to set up their passkey support. All right. And then question about the implementation is Passkeys open source? I assume this is referring to the work that you're doing, Mackinnon.
Mhm.
And it sounds like this is currently, is it in PR already? Is the PR public?
It is in PR, and the PR is public. It was just opened last night though, so there's a lot of things probably still in flux, but yes, it is open source, and it will remain open source.
Awesome. So people that are interested in the details of the implementation, if you can go take a look at Mackinnon's PR and provide feedback there. So that once that gets merged in, that will go into .NET 10 release, and I'm guessing probably .NET 10 preview 6. I think we have preview. We're at preview 4 is what's publicly available. Preview 5 is the planned June release, which should be available here in just a couple of weeks or so. But it's probably not going to make preview 5, I'm guessing. I think we're pretty close down on that release. So preview 6 at the earliest is when you'll start to see this show up in the .NET 10 train. So look for it there to actually try out the bits yourself. But if you want to see the implementation in progress, check out the PR. So yes, it will be open source. It is open source. Other questions? Can this be used in a backend for front-end pattern like the Entra example? Let's use backend for front-end. I mean, yes, I guess. Like does anyone want to try explain the backend for front-end pattern? I could take a crack at it, or Mike, do you want to?
Well, I think this is talking about something more specific in a security setting than sort of a backend for front-end pattern that we think about for web apps. So I'm not sure that I know how to answer this because I don't have a deep understanding of how this works in a security setting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know like with our Entra samples, the backend for front-end variations of our samples that we provide are basically handling all the authentication server side, and then creating a separate cookie for for representing the authentication with the client, with the browser client. So whatever you're doing for authentication, whether it's happening on the server or not, presumably you could use a passkey to actually authenticate the user at that point. So I don't know that it's directly coupled together, but like at some point, even in the backend for front-end pattern, you have something in interaction with the user to say, "Who are you?" Like give me a password or give me your passkey or whatever it is, so that I know who you are. And so regardless of the flow, that will happen, and that's where the passkey implementation I think would come into play. If you're using Entra, then it would be Entra that would be handling that passkey, presumably. I think that's if I misunderstood the question, apologize. All right. And then there was a question about the identity database updates and what's going to be happening for this.
There's
your PR already include some new tables and stuff in the schema?
Yeah, there's a new table for passkeys, but that's just about the only change.
So people that are, if you're already using ASP.NET Core Identity today and you want to then upgrade to .NET 10 and upgrade to use the passkey support, you will need to do some database schema migration in order to handle that. And we'll provide docs and samples to walk you through that process. Cool. All right. I think that's it. Those were the questions. So look for the new passkey support coming in .NET 10. Probably not in June quite yet, but look for it in the preview after. So like I think July timeframe is when we expect these bits to be available in the public previews, where you can of course participate in the implementation discussion and code reviews on GitHub. So just go to the .NET ASP.NET Core repo and check out Mackinnon's PRs. That's what we've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I put a bunch of the links that we've talked about from Build and also things related to Passkeys into the community links list. So you should be able to, actually, I think I have a banner for that, so I should probably show that. Here it is. So you can find all the links that we discussed today on the URL list, and give .NET 10 a try if you haven't already. And thank you for joining. We'll be back again next week. I think that's it.
Thanks, all.
Right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
We'll see you later. Let me get the outro video going. And bye.